Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I just wanted to do for fun. There are a lot of LLM benchmarks out there, and there are all these numbers and things that are thrown around. But the one thing I haven't seen people do is using LLMs to judge other LLMs. And I'm sure people have done it. I just haven't seen it done yet. So I wanted to do my own test. So what I set out to do is to use DeepSeek to evaluate a series of local LLMs that I run. So I took my most used local LLMs and I generated a series of questions in 6 different categories. I had DeepSeek score the results of all of them. I ran it multiple passes. And then I took and I added them up to get basically a winner. So it's a super cool thing because I do think maybe there is a future in us having maybe LLMs like judge one another. And I wanted to see how well that can happen today. So my expectations going into it were I want there to be some disparity. Like I don't want DeepSeek to just give everything a high score. I want it to actually have some nuance to it. So I gave it some details about like how it would break down the problem and like score it on a percentage basis, almost like a rubric for each of the different categories, which I'll go through here in a second. So anyway, the results are pretty awesome. I'll be curious what you guys think. But ultimately, this will be a pretty short one, but hopefully a ton of fun at the same time. All right, so jumping into it, what we have here is our coding questions. I wanted to have a wide range of questions, but I stayed with Python for now. I would like to maybe expand that out to other languages as well, but I wanted to be very consistent, so it was a single language being evaluated. I had it do something as simple as reversing a string all the way down to creating an entire web page and save it to CS or scraping an entire web page and saving it to CSV file. But again, I kept it with Python just to keep it consistent between each so going into this, what I expected was that the Quinn 2.5 coder would do well, but actually what ended up winning barely was the Gemma 2 27B, and 5.4 and Deep Think Reasoning 7B were all pretty close to that. They were just within margin of each other. But I was fascinated with how poorly, and poorly is debatable here because the scale, it isn't a wide variance between these, like the lowest being the Hermes 3 Llama 3.2. It got about what, an 885 or something like that. But the Quinn 2.5 coder did pretty poorly in comparison to Gemma 2 27B and the 5.4. So anyway, I thought these were interesting results, and I don't know, not exactly what I expected to be honest. I move on to creative writing, so everything from dialogue between characters, writing short stories, doing a marketing slogan, writing a letter, stuff like that. The results on this one, again, Gemma 2 27B, which actually fits my results. I found it to actually be the best at creative writing for me personally. I actually use it to get like ideas for things that I'm doing, in particular for emails and LinkedIn posts and things like that that I'm doing for work. I was very I don't know. I guess I was surprised to a certain degree that Mistral Nemo Instruct 2407 did worse than 5.4 because I feel like I've had better luck with it. But it's relatively close. And again, Hermes 3 Llama 3.2 is terrible, which is understandable. It's the smallest model in this test set here. I went to reasoning. So I did everything from basically designing an algorithm to explaining concepts to if you've got a bowl with 6 apples in it and you take away 4, how many do you have? So it had to kind of work through some stuff. And then ultimately on this one, I assumed the QWQ model was going to do the best. And it did, but surprisingly, not by that much better than like 5.4 and Quinn 2.5 Coder 14B. Again, Herbie's 3 Llama 3.2 did poor, and then the Meta Llama 3.1-8 was probably the next. That and the Mistral Nemo also did poor. Relative again. Um, but this one did. This one actually showed me that there's some promise because the fact that we were able to pick up the reasoning model, which I actually think my own subjective opinion is that it's the best reasoning model I can run locally in my hardware. The next I went to math, and on the math side, very simple stuff like integrals, differential equations, car traveling a certain speed, how long will it, or how far will it travel in a certain number of hours, stuff like that. And ultimately, Deep Think Reasoning 7B actually ended up with the highest result here, with the next three being QWQ 32B Preview and Gemma 2 27B, followed by Quinn 2.5 Coder 14B. 5.4 apparently did awful. It did not do good at the results here at all. That sort of surprised me based on some of the math benchmarks that I got. But again, this is all just for fun. I don't think this is giving us anything other than the results. Are the results what we think they are when we feed it into another LLM and have it grade other LLMs? Kind of fascinating. And then facts. So this one, I assumed 5.4 would do bad because that one is trained mostly on synthetic data. And I assumed some of the larger models would actually do better because they just got more memory to retain. And basically those results kind of were what I was expecting here. So the QWQ32B preview winning was not what I expected. I actually, if I would have predicted it, would have been the Gemma 227B. But again, the 32 billion parameter, we don't know what the training set is on, but apparently it knew a bit more of the facts, or at least DeepSeek thought it did anyway. And then I go over to real world scenarios where I basically give it some things like, how would you respond to someone that's upset? Given this data set, write a Python script to calculate the average sales per month. Write a blog post. Summarize the plot of The Great Gatsby. Things that you would just do kind of like in real world situations. And 5.4 barely edged that one out over the Deep Think Reasoning 7B. I was surprised that Gemma 2 27B didn't do better in the test I ran. And one of the tests actually was below 900, which was slightly below 900. And then one was actually a bit higher. So it seemed like there's a little bit more variance on that one in particular. And then the QWQ32B preview did pretty well. And the Meta Llama 3.1 8 billion actually did better than I thought it was. But that model is kind of a beast at times. Ultimately, we end up with the total score. So I went through and I added all the scores up from all the models. And we ended up with QWQ32B preview taking the win, followed by the Gemma 2 27B, followed by the Deep Think Reasoning 7B, and then we would have the Quinn 2.5 Coder 14B, and then 5.4. I did not think 5.4 was going to get fifth place here. I thought it was going to easily take second or third, and the fact that it scored very similar to Meta Llama 3.1 is kind of interesting to me. But I do think there's a teeny tiny bit of merit to building, if we could build our own test pipeline or our testing suite of questions, and then even use LLMs to look for the answers that we think, it could be pretty fascinating to use this to evaluate a model pretty quickly if it's something that you want to actually run yourself. Anyway, I'm curious what you guys think. Is these the results that you would have expected? Is this an interesting test? I just wanted to do something kind of fun to experiment with, how well DeepSeek could actually judge my local LLMs. And then maybe, heck, when a new model comes out, I can run it through a few times and kind of see where it ranks and refine the questions and just get that kind of working over time. Anyway, I appreciate you all. And if you like just fun content about LLMs and AI, like and subscribe. And until next time, peace out.